Alright, so I want this video to have 2 points to it. I want to talk about my personal awakening to the whole shadow government, New World Order, Illuminati, and I'd also like to hear about yours. I've always found it really interesting in the people I've met who are into this information, just hearing how they woke up, because for one thing, a lot of times they'll mention things that, like a documentary I haven't seen, for example, or a book that I should read. Um, there's that side of it, to further your knowledge, but then it's also just about hearing how people were able to break through the conditioning that was being implemented in them since the day they were born. I mean, that's pretty powerful in itself, right there. So I'll just go ahead and get started with me. I was always kind of an outsider, had always this outsider look on things. Um, I mean, even as a kid, I remember thinking I really didn't like mainstream music, and always had this kind of rebel attitude to me. And then I was raised really strict religious Mormon, actually, and I up until I was like 12 or 13, I pretty much accepted it all without questioning. But then once I became a teenager, I really started to question it, and eventually stopped going to church around the time when I turned 15, and that was caused some big issues with my family. But once I broke free from the Mormon church, it kind of was like just a I don't know how to describe it. Like the floodgates of my mind really opened up to so many other possibilities. Because when you're in that paradigm, and I'm not bashing Mormonism at all, it doesn't work for me, and it didn't work for me then. But once you open up away from the Mormonism and you open up these floodgates of possibility in your mind, it's really a liberating feeling. All right, and one of the major stepping stones of me waking up was I still remember when I was 14, I saw the movie The Matrix, which I'm sure the vast majority of you know how powerful it is, as far as the philosophical implications that it raises. And I mean, I just remember it struck such a powerful chord with me, thinking about, how do I know all that I'm seeing is real? Just pretty much the basic philosophical questions. And yeah, so that movie blew my mind away. Okay, so then from there, I remember hearing my brothers and sisters always mock people they knew who would talk about conspiracy theorists, or conspiracy theories, and I would always just kind of chuckle, oh man, that sounds weird. This guy believes the government's setting up concentration camps, or whatever the conspiracy was that they were mocking. Never really thinking about it too much. But then, I don't know, I just remembered some things they said about that, and started kind of, I would search, I had no idea where to start, so I'd literally go online and search, like, conspiracy theories, and then I might find, like, Infowars.com. But I never was too heavily into it. It's kind of like a weird pastime. And then eventually I had a friend who was, let's just say he was using, well, I'll just say it straight out. He was really doing a lot of drugs, basically, okay? And he started doing the same thing, reading these internet conspiracy theories, and he got into the whole reptilian thing, David Icke, and I just remember being extremely amused thinking of these interdimensional 12-foot-tall blood-drinking lizards that control the universe. And to me at the time it sounded so ridiculous that I actually, ridiculous but amusing, and actually just interesting that someone could believe that. So I actually ended up getting David Icke's book called Children of the Matrix, which I still have, and it's the back cover's torn off. I read that book like crazy. It had a huge impact on me, but I still kind of look at it. I mean, I liked a lot of the points he made, but I still didn't really have this huge impact on me. I still kind of viewed it as a strange form of entertainment, really. But I did like a lot of the nonconformist attitude to it, because at the time I was really into punk rock and heavy metal, any sort of non-mainstream aggressive form of rebellious music. So I mean that kind of attitude of David Icke tapped into that pretty well. Um, so from then on, I was aware of quote-unquote conspiracy theories, but I just wasn't a huge part of my life. I was really just mostly into music. And then I stretch ahead a few years. I end up getting my own place with some friends in an apartment, and I remember I always liked. And I was showing Alex Jones just kind of accidentally. Someone posted a video of his. I remember really liking it, and then I had my friend who's my current roommate now show me Alex Jones back probably in, I don't know, 2004, 2005. And I liked him, but I actually found a lot of his information depressing, because I mean he backs his stuff up pretty well for someone who's not completely awake, and it's like, okay, I see what he's saying, but it kind of made me feel hopeless and just sad. I was like, well, this sucks. I mean, there's this new world order who wants to kill off, like 90% of the population. They're destroying the economy on purpose. All this negativity, it had a strong impact on me. And actually, that's one thing I've noticed when a lot of people first wake up, they get this kind of sober realization that they've been lied to their whole life. And they really, when they start to really kind of, just barely catching on to this, the quote-unquote big picture of a conspiracy, it's really powerful. I mean, I've seen it in people I've woken up. The first thing is kind of disbelief. They're like, what? How could this be? But then when it starts to set in, you see this sadness. But from sadness, I think usually will come, kind of the anger, like, damn it, why is the New World Order poisoning me with the drugs in the drinking water and the genetically modified food that's sterilizing me? So it goes from anger, and then I think the anger, if you keep on, I mean, you can only be really angry for so long, it'll wear you out. But then you kind of get that righteous anger, that motivation, which is where I'd say I'm at now. So it's almost like there's some phases of waking up, because, I mean, you've been sat in front of a TV your whole life, so, sat in front of a TV, been told everything's cause and effect, been told you're just a worthless, monkey, and basically your life means nothing because you're just an animal, and, you're just going to die anyways. So, even if the schools don't teach you that directly, that's kind of what you infer from the teachings of evolution and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, it's and then just kind of went from there. Alex Jones showed me a lot of the things that really made me take it seriously. I mean, because I still like David Icke, but it's one thing to hear about some supposed person who had an abduction with some reptilian beings compared to actually reading something like Operation Northwoods, where the government actually had they put plans to paper of doing some false flag attacks to stir up a war against, I believe it was Cuba that they were trying to stir up a war against. So, yeah, I mean, when he shows things like that, Eco-Science by John P. Holdren, he shows you that. I mean, so he showed me some really concrete information that kind of opened my mind. And then from there, I just started watching all the documentaries, not just Alex Jones, but also, some other ones, like, for example, Camp FEMA, okay? And then Camp FEMA had a brief clip of Jeffrey Grupp from the Antimatter radio show. This is back in mid-2009, I believe, is around then. So I saw that. I'm like, Antimatter radio, that sounds interesting. So I go to his website, and actually it was a different website at the time. I think it was Abstract Atom. Or I think, yeah, when you typed in Antimatter radio, it would take you to abstractatom.com. And I started listening to his radio show, and the way I kind of viewed it then was kind of like Alex Jones, if Alex Jones was a Buddhist. That's how I used to describe Jeffrey Grupp to people. I mean, because he had the conspiracy down pretty well and had his own unique takes on it, and then he also had the whole spiritual side to him that was just as important, if not more important. So yeah, I mean, man, it was just the past, I'd say around 2 years, have really just been a crazy awakening, going down this rabbit hole that and I mean, I literally spend hours researching this stuff a day. It's become more than just a kind of pastime hobby. It's become really my passion in life. And it seems that no matter how much I study the rabbit hole, I'm just barely in the rabbit hole. You know, I'm just a few feet in when it goes miles and miles deep. And so yeah, so that was my story. I'd like to hear about your, you people waking up either in a video response, or if you're not comfortable doing that, you could obviously just leave comments, because I think it says a lot. And actually, I've noticed a lot of similarities, which is kind of cool. You know, people, when they break their conditioning, it seems like a certain flood of emotions that comes along with that. So yeah, please do share your quote unquote awakening that you went through, because I think it tells us a lot about ourselves, and yeah, I just really like to hear it. All right, so that's the video. Me. And then I was raised really strict religious Mormon, actually, and I up until I was like 12 or 13, I pretty much accepted it all without questioning. But then once I became a teenager, I really started to question it, and eventually stopped going to church around the time when I turned 15, and right there. So I'll just go ahead and get started with me. I was always kind of an outsider, had always this outsider look on things. I mean, even as a kid, I remember thinking I really didn't like mainstream music, and always had this kind of rebel attitude. I think a lot of times they'll mention things that, like a documentary I haven't seen, for example, or a book that I should read. There's that side of it, you know, to further your knowledge, but then it's also just about hearing how people were able to break through the conditioning that was being implemented in them since the day they were born. I mean, that's pretty powerful in itself. Alright, so I want this video to have 2 points to it. I want to talk about my personal awakening to the whole shadow government, New World Order, Illuminati, and I'd also like to hear about yours. I've always found it really interesting in the people I've met who are into this information, just hearing how they woke up, because for one thing, that caused some big issues with my family. But once I broke free from the Mormon Church, it kind of was like I don't know how to describe it, like the floodgates of my mind really opened up to so many other possibilities, because when you're in that paradigm, and I'm not bashing Mormonism at all, it doesn't work for me, and it didn't work for me.